Hello and welcome back to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and today we're checking out a pretty cool guitar. I just picked up this guitar used, so today we're going to be going through it, making sure it's all original, fixing anything that needs fixing, and just doing a basic deep dive on this guitar. This is a 2004 Gibson Les Paul Classic Goldtop. Let's check it out. So I picked this one up locally, and this one has a kind of an interesting story behind it. So apparently this guitar was a touring guitar for the band 7 Seconds. So I looked them up. They're kind of a punk band from the USA. They've got a pretty big following, actually. And so yeah, apparently the guitar tech sold this guitar, and I don't really know much about that band or if they had this guitar at any point. If there's any experts on this band in the comments, please let me know if you've ever seen this before. But it's just kind of interesting. So this is one of those made in Canada reptile pattern cases, so they got like the scales on it. And these are great cases. I really love the handle. They've got these big, thick handles that never seem to break or fall off. So yeah, really nice case. It appears that the latch has been ripped off at some point. Sometimes if people can't remember the lock, they'll just rip that off so they don't have to worry about it. Or that sometimes indicates a stolen guitar. Alright, here we go. So yeah, actually I have the brochure or the catalog for this guitar, and they don't call this a Goldtop. They call it natural copper or copper natural or something like that, so it's kind of interesting. And this is a 2004 Les Paul Classic, so that's right in that really nice era of Gibsons and Les Pauls, you know, late 90s to about 2005. So this one lands in that range, considered to be the Goodwood era of Gibson. I think it's just an era where there was lots of experience at the factory at Gibson, so a lot of people handling the guitars had lots of experience, and they had really good woods. So there's a lot of these that people really like because the quality was up there during these years of manufacture, and they were using nice woods. So that's basically the Goodwood era. And this one's in pretty nice shape. It definitely has some things that we need to work on and need to be fixed up. The main one is this pot has actually sheared off right off the body. So the potentiometer has a little arm that you put the knob on, and that's been totally broken off. So a pot will need to be replaced. It's got finish checking throughout. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. Oh yeah, it will. So it's got vertical finish checking all throughout the guitar. So that's pretty common on Goldtops. For whatever reason, the paint that they use with the Goldtops, when you put the nitro over top, it just checks, and that's a very common thing. That can be due to like temperature or humidity, but it just seems to happen a lot more on the Goldtops. So I'm not too worried about that. I actually like the way that checking on Goldtops looks. And this Goldtop has got a really nice sparkle to it. That's the other thing about Goldtops, is that no two look alike. The colors vary a lot. Some are darker, some are lighter, some have more metallic in it. It just really depends on the batch they were using at the time and how it's aged. And a unique spec for this year of classics is these are ceramic pickups. So this is the Gibson 496R 500T. They use this in like Explorers a lot. So it's kind of a hotter pickup. A unique thing for a classic. It's got 1960 on the pickguard because the big thing for this year of classics is they were supposed to be very close to, like, they were trying to replicate Gibson 1960 standard. So that was in all the marketing materials. How close they got, I'm not really sure. These golden bell-shaped knobs appear to be original. It's got one more significant ding on the top there. You can definitely feel that. And this one has the cream plastics. Another unique feature for the Les Paul Classics of this era is the acrylic inlays are kind of slightly yellowed. think that's meant to like simulate aging, but it's just a characteristic that these guitars have. The fingerboard looks nice. It's got some red in there. And the frets appear to be in good shape, other than they're a little rusty and oxidized in a few spots. They need to be polished and cleaned up. And there's some gunk on the fingerboard that needs cleaning. This is a Corian nut. We've got our Les Paul Classic truss rod cover. And we've got a little bit of lacquer lifting around some of the machine head spots there. There's our Gibson logo with a little bit of lacquer lift as well. But overall it's in decent condition. Apparently it's all stock except for the machine heads, which I'll show right now. So let's flip it over. Oh, and the strap buttons have been replaced with locking ones. It's got a two-piece mahogany body. You can see the seam line there. And the back's in decent shape. It's got some buckle worming. Not rash. Rash means it goes all the way through to the wood. Worming, you can just see like indentations in the back from a belt buckle. And mahogany neck. It's got some nice grain on the neck. This is a slim taper C neck, 60s style. And this would have came with the green button machine heads, but it's been replaced with these really heavy duty Grovers. This is a common upgrade. A lot of people don't like those button tuners, those green button tuners. And these ones are really sturdy. They use the same screw pattern as the originals too, so there's no extra drilling done in this one. And the Les Paul Classic serial number works a little bit different. It's ink stamped on the back like the original 60s Gibsons were. And post 2000, the first two digits represents the year. So this is a 2004 model. So yeah, pretty cool guitar. It needs a little bit of work for sure. It needs a setup, it needs a cleaning. We need to replace that potentiometer. And I've never played a Les Paul with this pickup combination in it, the 496R 500T set. So I'm excited to try that out too. So let's go ahead and get on the bench and get some specs. Some of the later iterations of the Les Paul Classic had the chambering instead of the traditional 9-hole rate relief, but this is before then. So this has the traditional 9-hole, and it's weighing in at 9 pounds, 8.7 ounces, or 4.33 kilograms. Alright, let's check out the pickup reading. So these are the higher output ceramic style pickups. So in the bridge position it's reading a 14.37. In the bridge position that's an 8.20. And in the middle it's a 5.22. Okay, so when I was trying to remove the pickup rings I encountered an issue here. So I went to unscrew one of the pickup ring screws, and it sheared right off. So that can be due to like rust or just a bad screw. And so now I've got a screw poking out of the body. So there's a couple different ways you can deal with this. I was fortunate to have some thread showing here, so that's great. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove the pick guard so it's out of the way. Take out this bridge post, and then I'm going to slowly use a set of pliers and just try to work that out by turning the pliers and seeing if we can't get that out. So managed to get this out fairly easily, thankfully. Sometimes if they break off right at the surface, they're a huge pain to get out. You have to use a screw extractor. Sometimes you gotta dig into the wood a little bit to be able to get it out. It's just a huge headache. So luckily that came out easy. With the back pickup, it's got Gibson USA engraved in on the back, and that's just standard for the 496R 500T sets. And it's got the braided wiring. Let's have a look at the neck pickup. More of the same. It's got the Gibson USA on there. And let's have a quick look at the routs. The routs look nice and clean, and it's got no factory markings in there. If you look closely at the side, you can see there's a little line on the finish, so that just shows you how thick the maple top is. And then on the neck pickup, looks like it's a short neck tenon, and it does have a little bit of factory marking in there, but I can't quite make it out. But the route looks nice and clean. And here's a look at the bridge. It's nice shape, not collapsed in any way. It's a little oxidized over the years, but still looks good. And here's a look at the tail piece. It's full weight, and it's just got the casting mark down the middle. And here's how it looks with no pick guard. I had to clean it up a little bit. It was pretty dirty under there. But yeah, it looks nice. You can still see a lot of checking even under the pick guard. If you want to have it with no pick guard, you'd have to deal with the 2 holes, but yeah, it looks good. And I just replaced that pickup ring screw with the newer one. It's the same size, but you can obviously tell it's new because it's not rusted like the rest. Before we look at the electronics, I'm just going to preemptively take off this knob screw here. So this has the thumb bleeder. So the thumb bleeder is just this little piece of metal underneath the screw. For this, I like to use a spanner tool. Just makes it really easy. And then I just put some tape on the bottom so it protects the finish when I'm using it. So this is what the thumb bleeder looks like, just a little piece of metal. So it indicates where on the knob you are. Here's a look at our electronics. So it all looks original. It's got Gibson branded pots, and it's got that ashtray in there. It's that plate that they use to mount all of the stuff onto. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and remove one of these because that front shaft is totally sheared off. So it looks like I can replace it with a similar size pot, and then all I have to do is solder one leg onto where it goes and one little capacitor there. So I'll get my other pot ready and we'll just do it at the same time here. So to remove this plate, I'm going to have to remove all the other knobs too, so we can have a better look at what's going on. So I only want it out a little bit just so I can replace that pot. These are the long shaft gold pots, and they do have a screw in the front too. So I'm just going to remove this screw and then replace this pot, and then I can weasel it back into spot without having to unsolder everything. Now I just need to unsolder that one capacitor. And I do happen to have an old part here, which is basically the same exact one. It's just a different brand, but it's still a 500K pot A. And now that the pot is back on the plate, I'm just going to weasel it back into place, and then it'll be just a little easier to solder it. So yeah, just fit right back into place super easily. Just got to adjust this ground wire a little bit. So now I'm just going to do the same thing on the pot on the new one. I'm going to solder one of the legs to the back, and then just solder the capacitor into the middle. And there's a look at the new pot installed. Yeah, fairly easy. Now I'm just going to put all the screws back together and close everything up. The route in the cavity looks nice and clean, and the pickup cover fits in there nicely. Sometimes they're not routed quite correctly, and they have a space, or they're too tight. This one fits nice. And here's a look at the selector switch route. Looks like the original part, and yeah, it's well routed. Looks pretty standard. I had a similar Gibson knob, but the color is just a little bit off. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to replace them all or just leave it. It's not too bad. The fingerboard's a little grungy and dry, and the frets are oxidized and rusty in a few spots. So I'm going to go ahead and spend some time on this fingerboard. I'm going to hydrate it with some lemon oil. I use the Dunlop 65. I think I've been using the same bottle for like 10 years. It just never runs out. And I'm going to go ahead and polish the frets. And there we are, looking much better now. Nice and polished frets and hydrated fingerboard. The fingerboard rosewood looks really nice. It's nice and dark. And then here's a look at our truss rod. So yeah, no thread showing at all. Lots of room for adjustment. And this is common in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was lacquer lifting on the headstock pretty often. You would see it around the machine heads and over the logo, around the sides. So there is a little bit of lacquer lift there, but it's pretty common in this era. Here's a look at the vintage Grover Keystone Rotomatic tuners. I'm not sure how old they are, but they feel great, super tight. These are really good tuners, and a lot of people with Les Pauls swap these out to these because they're great. They're really reliable and tight tuners. And again, they use the same screw hole pattern as the original, so you could always swap it back to original if you wanted, but these are great. Alright, so everything's fixed, and the fretboard's conditioned and cleaned, and the frets are nice and shiny. So I'm going to go ahead and restring this guitar and set it up, and then we can check the setup. Managed to get a really nice setup on this guitar. So using my notch straight edge, we can see that there's very little space between the straight edge and the fingerboard, so that tells us that truss rod is sitting nice and tight. And then over here by the 3rd fret, when I use the 3rd fret, you can see that the string is just resting very nicely against that 1st fret. So that tells us we've got good action in this area, and the nut is very well cut. And then at the 12th fret, using a depth gauge, we can see at the low E, it's sitting at just between a 0.75 and a 1 on the low E. And the same on the high E, between 0.75 and a 1. So very nice low action. I restrung this with Ernie Ball 9s Super Slinkies and stretched the strings and intonated it as well. I'm just going to quickly run through the fingerboard just to make sure there's no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. I like to speed up this part, but if you want to hear it in real time, just slow down your player to 25%. So yeah, nice, very low action and no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. It's a pretty heavy guitar, so it sits on a strap just fine. It sounds nice acoustically. Alright, let's get some neck specs. Width at the nut is 1.698, so pretty much a 1.7 or 43.14 millimeters at the 12th fret. That's 52.79 millimeters or 2.07 inches. Width at the 1st fret is a 0.82 or a 20.83 millimeters, and at the 12th fret that is a 22.4 millimeters or a 0.88 inches. And just a quick look at the condition before we plug it in. As you can see in this lighting, you can really see the finish checking. Again, this happens to a lot of Goldtops. We've got that one replaced knob and potentiometer, and there's a little bit of a ding here. You can see there in the finish. It's not all the way through the wood, it's just to the finish, but it's definitely there, you can feel it. And the pickups and everything are all original. The bridge and tailpiece are original. It's got a really nice dark streaky rosewood fingerboard. And again, those are the kind of yellowed acrylic inlays that are on the classics. Corian nut, you've got a little bit of that lacquer lifting on the headstock, again, which is common in this era. And the frets are super nice and polished now. and the fingerboard's nice and hydrated. There's no other marks or dings to speak of on the top. And then we've got a replaced knobs. These are strap locks. Our back is in good condition. No major scratches or dings. There is some buckle worming. If you hold it up to the light, you can see there's some wear marks from a buckle. But nothing through to the wood. And neck's in nice shape. Looks like there's a little bit of a mark here. But other than that, it's super smooth. No marks or dings. And our tuners have been replaced with the Grover Rotomatic tuners, the vintage ones, with the Keystone tuners. These are really nice machine heads, and there's no additional drilling done to install them. So you could always put it back to stock if you wanted. And our serial number dates it to 2004. So yeah, this thing cleaned up really nicely. And it plays really nicely as well. So let's go ahead and plug it in and see how it sounds. I'm plugged into my 1965 Fender Bassman here in my settings, and I'm plugged into a Barefoot Honeybee that I'm going to be using for overdrive, and a Flint Strymon. I'm just going to go through each position clean and then with a little bit of dirt. Alright, so it sounds really nice clean, a little bit darker sounding pickups, and they're really punchy. They're really overdriving the amp. I've got it set at 2, and I'm already getting some overdrive when I strum. So yeah, they're very, very hot. I'm going to go ahead and try it with a little bit of dirt. Alright, so what are my final thoughts on this 2004 Goodwood era Les Paul Classic in Copper Natural, or Goldtop. This guitar, this Les Paul, sounds like an Explorer in a Les Paul package, which is exactly what it is, because it has the Explorer pickup set in here, the 496R 500T pickup set, and they're super high output. So it looks like it should play, you know, classic, overdriven, bluesy stuff, which it can reasonably well, but it really shines with the higher gain stuff. It has a really, really nice sound when you're cranking it with some overdrive or a distortion, and it really pushes your amp because of the high output pickups. It does sound great clean though, and if you adjust your amp a little bit, you can get some really nice overdriven tones, but it really does want to push your amp. It plays and sounds great. I got the action super, super low on here, and the frets are super polished, and it stays in tune really well. I really like these Rotomatic, like vintage style Grover tuners. I think they're a great upgrade on a Les Paul. For me, it's just a tad heavy. A lot of people swear by super heavy Les Pauls. They say they got more tone and resonance and whatever. I tend to like mine a little bit lighter, but it's not like a monster by any means. And the neck profile for me is just a little too small. I've got larger hands, so I like the 50s rounded C a little bit better, but it still feels quite comfortable. I really like the look of Goldtops, especially when they're just starting to check a little bit. I mean, basically you'd pay the Murphy Lab to about $3,000 for the same sort of effect. And this just happens on Goldtops a lot of the time, just due to the nature of the paint. You'll see Goldtops check a lot more often than other colors. And condition wise, it's really nice. It's just got some of the standard stuff, the checking in the finish, some of the lacquers lifting on the headstock, which is common for this era, and just a one ding there and a little bit of buckle rash in the back. Again, this was sold to me as a touring guitar for 7 seconds, and I've got no way to prove that or anything, but it does have that marking on the case, which does make it look like a tour guitar. Usually the roadies will put what guitar is on in here, so it says Goldtop and then 7 seconds. I'm not sure why someone would put this on the case to try to make it seem like that, so it's likely it came from the band. And overall, it feels just like a really, really solid guitar. If you're interested in this guitar, I'm going to have it up for sale on the Reverb page. But other than that, thank you for tuning in to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and I'll have more for you really soon. Thanks a lot.